I am now going to be required, the college can go ahead with this, to put me into a re-education program with their so-called social media experts. And that's also, by the way, a profession that does not exist, until I learn my lesson, whatever that is, regardless of how much time that takes, by their judgment. Or they can take my license away.
Jordan Peterson is heated and incredibly salty following an Ontario court ruling against the psychologist and conservative media personality. Now, the ruling upholds a regulatory body's order that he takes social media training in the wake of complaints about his controversial online posts and statements. Let me give you some more details on how this all developed. Before we get to the undeniably hilarious reaction video that he put out there into the world for us to see, here's what actually happened. So last November, Peterson, who's a professor emeritus with the University of Toronto Psychology Department, was ordered by the College of Psychologists of Ontario to undergo a coaching program on professionalism in public statements. Now, as you can imagine, some of his posts on Twitter have drawn a lot of negative attention, and that was really the concern here. That followed multiple complaints to the governing body of Ontario psychologists, in which Peterson is a member, and it's all regarding his online commentary. So I'm gonna give you the specific instances that were cited by the board here, the panel, I should say. The panel noted particular concern with a series of statements that included the following: referring to Catherine McKenney, an Ottawa city councillor who prefers to use they, them pronouns as an, and I'm quoting him, okay, quote, appalling, self-righteous, moralizing thing, end quote. Also, a tweet in which he used the dead name of actor Elliot Page, stating, and again, I'm quoting him, remember when pride was a sin, and then he used his dead name. Page just had her breasts removed by a criminal physician. Let's go to the next set of examples cited by the panel. A tweet in which he referred to Gerald Butts, the former principal secretary of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as a prick. His tweet in response to a Sports Illustrated swimsuit cover of a plus-size model in which he said, quote, sorry, not beautiful, and no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. Now, they also note that Peterson's January 25th, 2022 appearance on Joe Rogan's podcast was an issue. During that podcast, he spoke about this is actually the worst if you ask me. He spoke about a vindictive former client whose complaint about him was a pack of lies. The inquiries, complaints, and reports committee of the College of Psychologists of Ontario found that Dr. Peterson, quote, appeared to be engaging in degrading comments about a former client and making demeaning jokes, end quote, on the Joe Rogan Experience. It expressed concern that by referring to Elliot Page as her and by their former name, and by calling Catherine McKenney an appalling, self-righteous, moralizing thing, Peterson may be engaging in degrading, demeaning, and unprofessional comments. And they clarified even further that the ICRC's concerns with Peterson addressing Elliot Page as her and by their prior name, as well as calling a city councillor a thing and a doctor a criminal, arose from the language Dr. Peterson used, not his personal views. Now, on its face, the language raised professionalism concerns, they argue, and that it was not necessary for the ICRC to engage with Peterson on his motivation for making those comments. Now, the panel also stated that referring to the physician who performed Elliot Page's surgery as a criminal was inflammatory and unprofessional. And so, after its review, here's what happened. The panel concluded that Peterson's conduct poses moderate risks to the public, which includes the potential of undermining public trust in the profession of psychology and trust in the college's ability to regulate the profession in the public interest. And the panel said it recognizes Peterson has a constitutional right to freedom of expression. However, they also argue that as a member of the college, Peterson is obligated to maintain its professional standards. Peterson, however, said his tweets on subjects like gender dysphoria are based on his informed knowledge and are, in fact, professional to the highest order. And he even denies that he has brought disrepute to the profession, arguing that the opposite is actually true. This is my favorite quote from him. He says, "I think I've done demonstrably more than any psychologist has ever produced to increase the prestige of and trust of the practice of psychology around the world."
Well, I'm glad you're humble. You'll probably win a prize for that too. All right, so I'm gonna shock the world by partly agreeing with Jordan Peterson, but this one is super nuanced. So first of all, he is right. There is no such thing as a social media expert, totally made up. Second of all, he is right. That is exactly the outfit you should wear if you're playing a villain in a comic movie. Okay, now, but that's not, though, kidding aside, there are things that I actually am concerned about in this story. But first, understand this. This is about whether he keeps his license as a psychologist, not whether he's allowed to say these things at all.
Correct.
Right, and this Canada and not America.
Right, and let me just add a little more nuance to it. So the argument here is he needs to go to this like social media professionalism training. He doesn't want to do it, which is why he had appealed a lower court's decision on this. This was finally decided by Ottawa's Supreme Court, and they upheld the previous decision. And if he fights them on this or refuses to undergo the training, he could lose his license.
Yeah, so if he was in America, I think he's allowed to say all those things, and then we fight back, and then and that's how speech works. And so I don't believe in banning people. I don't believe in banning their speech. His ideas are perfectly preposterous and very easy to defeat. So don't go down that road. Now, as a psychologist, though, you have different responsibilities in that profession. There's a lot of things that can get you kicked out of different professions, law, medicine, etc. Right? And my wife's a therapist, and the rules are pretty strict.
Yeah.
And so, is he in flagrant violation of those rules? Probably.
Talking about the client, I would say is the worst, because I mean, it just shows a lack of respect for the clients that trust you for therapy, treatment, whatever he's offering to them. And to do it on the largest podcast, on the Joe Rogan Experience, I think is not a good idea, to say the least.
Yeah, so attacking a client, totally out of bounds. So on that alone, he should be in trouble, and I understand why they went in that direction. But then, when you look at the things, he like a lot of conservatives, he damages his own cause. So you want to call that woman a self-righteous, moralizing person? No problem. Okay, that's your opinion, and I don't think that violates even the psychology standards. But when you call her a thing, that's unprofessional, right? And so, of course, I disagree with it. Of course, I'd fight back against you vociferously, right? But that's not the point. The point is it unprofessional if you're a psychologist in that area? And then saying that you don't agree with Elliot Page's surgery. I mean, it's weird. He's a grown person and allowed to make his decisions. But okay, that's your opinion. But calling the doctor a criminal physician, well, what if they called you a criminal? My guess is he would be very upset by that,
right,
et cetera. You can't just go around calling other physicians criminals. There's certain standards. And then the weirdo thing about she's not hot, right? This person is not hot. I mean, look, if you're a psychologist again, not if you're a plumber, not if you're an accountant, maybe it's not relevant to your career, but going around publicly shaming people because you don't find them attractive enough, I can see how that would cause concern in your field. But the problem is, when he brings up things like gender dysphoria and other opinions that he has, those are things that should be debated.
Agreed.
Even if I don't agree with his position, they should be debated. And when you take action against them, I'm worried that that's gonna freeze everyone else up and go, okay, then I'm not saying anything. I don't want to disagree with whatever is the conventional wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous thing in the medical field. I
agree that it's a dangerous thing in the medical field. It's a dangerous thing on college campuses, which increasingly have become more and more censorious in regard to perspectives that don't go along with the overwhelming consensus. And on college campuses, let's keep it real, the consensus tends to be pretty left wing. And so there are examples of, legitimate professors who have not engaged in unprofessional behavior at all, who have been rejected for tenureship. A good example of that is Yoel Inbar, who was basically applying for a tenured position at UCLA. And literally 4 years ago, in the context of a podcast, he questioned these DEI statements that universities are now making mandatory, including public universities. So if you're applying for tenureship at these universities and they require this, you literally have to provide a statement in support of DEI as you apply. And in the context of the podcast, he questioned the efficacy of doing that. He did not question he didn't even go against DEI in general, just those statements in particular. And students signed a petition urging the university to avoid hiring him over that. That is not okay at all, in my opinion.
Both in college and in the medical field and in all fields, you have to have diversity of thought. If you don't have diversity of thought, we might be right today, but ideology and rigid ideology is going to lead you in the wrong direction. You have to have an open mind. That defeats the whole point of these universities and these professions if you say only one position is right and it's right for the rest of time. So I'm worried about the trend, although Jordan Peterson was begging to get kicked out of that profession. And so now him pretending to be a victim is a little rich.
Well, finally, why don't we see how he feels about that? Here he is talking to his daughter.
I have a good legal team. We have the money necessary to do this, and we have the connections. So if the college wants to re-educate me, they're more than welcome to try. But if they think they're going to do it in secret, they've got another think coming.
Well, with that, it was nice talking to you. Have fun at the presidential debate tonight. I like your suit.
Oh, thank you. Isn't it ridiculous?
Unfortunately, I don't think that Jordan Peterson does much to help his cause. But nonetheless, final thoughts, Cenk.
Yeah, I don't mind it being public. I think that's interesting. So have at it, Hoss. But I mean, it almost looks like he's trying to play the Joker. And his daughter didn't do him any favors by letting that super awkward line hang there for all that time. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.